Good afternoon, everybody. Hi, Lynette.
Forty participants. One moment here, everybody. Okay. So it is noon on October the 30th. We're having a special meeting here today. We're going to discuss, have a COVID update and, discuss what's happening with COVID in the county. And, but first we're open for public comment.
We might want to remind people how to do their public comment.
Sure. If you click at the bottom of your screen, if you're on Zoom, and you click and you look at the bottom on participants. Sorry about the dog barking in the background. And you see the bottom on participants. If you click on that, it'll open the participants window, and there should be a place that you can raise your hand, although I'm not seeing that on mine right now. Otherwise, you can also, on Q&A on the bottom, you can also click on that and put in the chat line that you would like to be elevated to make a public comment.
Maybe I'll add to that bit. For the 32 people who are on Facebook, feel free to type a comment in and we'll vocalize it.
Right. You can also, and you can do the same on the Q&A. If you don't come on and elevate to be able to actually speak, you can also leave your public comment under Q&A, the chat line.
Randy, will you be taking any public comment later in the meeting, or?
I don't think, I think the first thing we need to do is probably go through and get a COVID update and understand the current state.
I think so.
Talking with Tim. And we normally don't just open it up as a soapbox or a round robin with everybody in the room while we're discussing those issues. I would suggest that we might, I think since no one has raised their hand right now, if we go forward right now with the COVID update, I think we could, in this case, make an exception and have a period of public comment to come on for 2 or 3 minutes and make a comment and step down if somebody wishes to. But I think that would be a good thing to do today, unless I have an objection from either of the other two commissioners on that.
No, I would just note that there is Tom Elliott has already mentioned he wants to make a public comment right now.
Okay, that's fine.
In the chat window.
Yeah, and I would just add to that to make sure I understand. I think, Lynette, as the police judge of Georgetown, is welcome to participate for the duration.
Oh, yeah. What I mean is just the public in general, we usually don't bring in because it can turn into quite a free-for-all. So, but I think we could have a public comment afterwards, after everybody's informed by the update. But if Tom wants to come on at this time, is he? Yeah, there he is.
Yep, sure. I'll keep it short and sweet. Most of you know I'm Tom Elliott, and I'm among the group of mostly retired seniors who I am constantly reminded by my children are one of the most likely to get more sicker by the COVID if I catch it. So I'm simply here to ask you, and I'll listen to the meeting with interest, but I'm asking that you allow our restaurants to remain open as long as they comply with the public health experts' advice to properly space patrons and to wear masks and to require masks. Our restaurant owners and their employees should be allowed to continue their jobs. I know that it's important to protect everybody, but at this point, and this, I think really protecting those most susceptible is important, but I think it's equally important to allow people to make a living as long as they're willing to comply with the health recommendations. So thank you.
Thanks for your comment, Tom. With that, I'm just looking to see if we have any more raised hands down here anywhere or Q&A. With that, I think we should go on into the update at this time. And Tim, I'll hand it over to you.
Thanks, Randy. Good afternoon, everyone. Happy Friday. Thank God, although it doesn't really distinguish Friday from Saturday from Sunday in the world I live in. Anyway, currently, here's the basic facts. Currently, Clear Creek County is experiencing the highest rate of cases we have to date. Over the last 7 days, we've had 21 additional cases in Clear Creek County, the last 7 days. Last weekend, that began, and we began an investigation over the weekend. And in that investigation, we learned of 2 different events that took place in Georgetown specifically. At that time, we had 8 new cases that were derived directly from Georgetown, which also makes it the single largest outbreak we've had to date in the county from any one location. During our investigation, and this is the challenge. I know this is a pandemic and I know everybody wants to know everybody's information, but everyone can't know everyone's information. And Clear Creek County is so small that I can say one additional thing and everyone in this room virtually will know exactly who I'm talking about. So I know everybody wants to know all the details, but I can't give you all the details. I can say this. We had 8 cases last weekend that we were investigating, and through that investigation, some people were helpful and other people were not helpful in terms of us identifying close contacts and cases and providing us with some background and context as to where they may or may not have contracted the virus. So when I spoke on Tuesday of this week, my comments were really around us. 1, it was frustration. 2, it was really around us trying to understand where the virus had been contracted and how it was spreading. Was it spreading through these 2 different events? Was it spreading through businesses? Was it spreading through just personal contacts, et cetera? And I said at that meeting that we were still investigating, and what we were going to do about it, we still didn't know because we didn't have all of the information. So here we are. We now have 21 cases, as I said, over the last 7 days, and that number is still growing. Providing a daily or weekly update, those numbers change. So I don't want to be in a situation where someone said, oh, you said it was 17 yesterday. Correct, I did. And it's now up to 21. Those numbers evolve and change all the time. There's also pieces of information that I can't tell you because, again, if I do, you will instantly know who I'm talking about. And I can't and will not provide that level of information. Just like you wouldn't want me telling the public that you had COVID, I can't tell you who specifically has COVID. And although I'm not saying a name, if I tell you a specific detail, you will instantly know who I'm talking about. I would like to add, though, that having COVID is not it does not put a scarlet letter on your chest. You should not feel ostracized from society. I hope that you recover from it, and I hope you do well, but you should not feel guilt, and you should not feel any sort of thing. I would just ask the public to do your part. This is a case in point where when you do things that you shouldn't be doing, you impact the entire community. So one of those cases that was derived from Georgetown has trickled into the high school, and now the high school has been put on remote learning because we now have 5 confirmed cases at the high school with a potential 1 or 2 additional cases. So the community is so small that what you do and what you think is inconsequential can have a massive impact on the broader community almost overnight, without a doubt. And it's not fair to the community. It's not fair to the businesses. It's not fair to anyone in the community. So we all need to take personal responsibility. The only time I would close a business from a public health perspective is if we have a quote unquote outbreak at a said business. And what defines an outbreak at a business is if, and I hesitate to use any business, so I'm going to say Jack in the Box, because I think we don't have one in Clear Creek County. If there was 5 employees at Jack in the Box, I would consider that an outbreak because those individuals got it at Jack in the Box through transmission between each other and through the employees, they have passed it on. That's considered an outbreak. And Jack in the Box would be closed for a 2-week period for those people and those potential additional contacts. If a bunch of people who visited Jack in the Box for some reason independently got COVID, that does not define an outbreak from the CDPHE, the state's definition of an outbreak. Having said all that, there were 2 businesses in Georgetown that voluntarily closed themselves. I cannot tell you any more information than that because if I do, it will instantly tell you personal health information that I am unwilling and unable to share with you. Both of those businesses voluntarily closed. One of them is now back open because it was a voluntary closure on their part, and the other one is, I believe, still closed. I cannot tell you more than that. I did not close them. No one on my team closed them. The owners of those businesses closed themselves. What we're seeing in spades in the county and in the state of Colorado and across the entire country of the United States is what we're seeing here. We're seeing not only transmission through travel, you leaving the state and coming back, but family and friends coming and visiting and giving it to you and then leaving. But now what we're seeing in spades is small gatherings. In this case, one gathering was 20 people and the other one was probably similarly sized. Even 2 families or 3 families together, when you are in a home and you are without a mask, you can have one of those 10 people in that room who have COVID, who do not know it, and can individually give it to everyone in that room. And now you have 10 people who have COVID from that single individual. So I would recommend that you do not have any social gatherings at all in your home or in a business. It's a really bad idea from a disease transmission. I know you love and trust the people that you invite in your home, but love and trust has nothing to do with this. Love and trust does not prevent the virus from spreading from one human being to the other. Basic fact. So when you're in your home and you have no mask on and you're eating dinner and socializing with your family and friends, it's a perfect opportunity to give it to each other. The restaurants and businesses in Clear Creek County, Georgetown included, are, in my opinion, doing a very good job. There are some exceptions, and those exceptions have been notified. Have we identified all of the exceptions? No. I don't really have the team to go into every single business and hang out there. I wish I did, but I don't. We are relying on the proprietors of businesses and the patrons who go to those businesses to inform us when they see flagrant violations of mask mandates or other such things and inform us. And when we take those things very seriously, and when we do find out, we visit them and give them a verbal warning. If they continue to not abide by the rules, we then give them a written warning, which is required by law. And then once we give them the written warning, if we find again that they have violated it, it's only then that the police or sheriff will show up and provide them with the summons. We're doing everything we can to help enforce these, but the public health department is not in the enforcement field. We are in trying to keep everyone safe and put out the fires as best we can. It requires everyone else in the community, the business owners and the society at large, to help us enforce those rules. But as I said, most businesses in the community are doing a great job of mandating masks and social distancing and doing really well cleaning. We haven't had, having said that, we haven't not yet had an outbreak in a business. And I think that speaks to the level and the care that businesses are taking. I know I don't say that enough, but there it is. I have faith in many of the businesses in the community, almost all of them. There are exceptions, and you should feel empowered as a business owner to mandate masks. If a customer comes in and refuses to wear a mask, it's a customer you don't need. If they don't have enough regard for you and your business and the people in your business, ask yourself, is that a customer you really want? Moving forward, we are doing everything we can. My 3 nurses who are working their butts off day in and day out have encountered over the last 3 days some of the rudest people they've ever encountered. In terms of what they're saying to our nurses is offensive on the highest level. It's unbelievable what people are saying and accusing our nurses of doing and saying to them. And somehow they feel empowered that they can be rude and disrespectful to the people who are working tirelessly to protect them and protect our community at large. It's embarrassing, to say the least. That's not everyone, but a handful of people can ruin it, absolutely ruin it for the nurses and absolutely make a horrible, horrible day for them, and have to deal with that sort of rudeness and disrespect when all they're trying to do is help protect the community at large. I feel obligated to stand up and say something for those nurses because they're working their butts off, and to have somebody be rude and disrespectful to them when they're trying to reach out and help protect them is mind-boggling. I just don't understand or get it. Those nurses are there for you and trying to protect you and your well-being in your business if you're a business owner, not there to take your abuse and to take your nonsense comments to them. It's just mind-boggling. Anyway, as a community, what we need to do to stop this, the nurses are doing what they can. What we need to do to stop it is to stop have public or social gatherings of any size. Don't have your friends over for dinner tonight or tomorrow night or anytime in the very near future. It's only doubling your odds of getting the virus. The state current estimates as of Wednesday was 1 in 200 Coloradans is actively infected with the virus. That's up from last week, which was 1 in 292. So it's, as you can see, next week, it's probably going to be 1 in 100 or 1 in 150. You do the math, and it doesn't take very many people to know one connection to the next, 200 people or 150 people. So even having your closest friends over is a very risky thing, particularly when you're inside, you're not wearing a mask, and you're socializing for hours on end. It's just a recipe for disaster. Any questions so far?
We have two comments in the chat line. The first is from Corinne Westerman. Are all 21 cases related to the Georgetown outbreak, or are there outliers?
No, they're not all related to the Georgetown outbreak. As I said, we still have people who are leaving the state and traveling and coming back. We still have people in the county who are having friends and family come and stay with them for some reason. We still have people who work in other counties whom everyone at their business is infected, and they subsequently learned that and tested positive, and unfortunately gave it to everyone in their family because they didn't know they were positive. 60% of people are asymptomatic, which is a problem. It means you could have COVID and not know it and give it to your entire family, give it to all your friends that you invited over to your home, and the like. So we still have all of the reasons we had before of why people are getting COVID. It's now being amplified by the fact that we're becoming complacent and we're having small gatherings. And the transmission rate is so high now in the state and in our county that it precludes you from having small social gatherings because it's so much out there that anybody you invite over is a potential risk to you and your family.
I think, and then I would just like to say that there's a comment that was just posted in here by Paul Boat. My family and coworkers appreciate the work that you and your team are doing for our community. Thank you. So thought it'd be good to pass that along. George, was that you that started to speak a moment ago? Someone did.
I was just wondering if all of the test results from the tests that were done on Tuesday have been received back.
This Tuesday?
Yeah.
I don't know that as a fact. I know that we've received most of them back. So I know a number of people on this call. I see there's a lot of people on here that normally probably aren't on our calls. The state lab in Denver is no longer able to process Clear Creek County's labs. The state lab is so overwhelmed, they're getting 25 to 30,000 tests a day. They can process 5,000. So the state lab informed us on Tuesday that they will no longer process our labs. We have an alternative, luckily, and it's actually a better alternative. The alternative is an oral swab test that we overnight to California, and the California lab returns our results within 48 hours. And the test that we're using is 10% more accurate than the previous test we were using. So it's a win-win-win-win-win for everybody. Bad news, but a huge silver lining for the county. I ordered an additional 1,000 of those tests yesterday that hopefully we'll receive next week. So we will not run out of tests. Anybody and everybody who wants to get a COVID test, we will be able to accommodate you. Having said that, our 3 nurses have been so overwhelmed over the last 3 days that we are bringing in 3 additional individuals to help with the scheduling of testing. The nurses normally do that, but have been unable to even answer the phone over the last couple of days because of what we've been dealing with. So those 3 individuals will be brought in on Monday and will help start scheduling people to get tested throughout the week. We're going to continue to have testing at least 2 or 3 days a week throughout the county. We go in Idaho Spring on Tuesday, and we go from Silver Plume, Georgetown, and Evergreen on the other end on every other Thursday or whatever schedule is necessary. And occasionally when we have a massive outbreak like we did, what I'm considering a massive outbreak for our county, we have the ability to go, in this case, to Georgetown and test as many people as we can on a random day when the need is there.
There are 2 more comments in here or questions. Randy Volcana said the Alpine restaurant has received all of our test results back and all came back negative. So there's some good news. And
Yeah.
Mary Smith asks, because of the lack of cooperation of the infected persons, but adhering to HIPAA requirements, is there not a public need for more information of this recent outbreak so innocent residents and others can be more watchful for their own health and safety?
I'm not sure what detail I can tell you that will help protect you more. Than you should on any given day, regardless of whether someone is cooperative or not. And most people were cooperative, very cooperative. It's just a few that generally aren't. And there's really nothing we can do about that. It's up to you, the individual, for your own due diligence to social distance, wear your mask, wash your hands, and don't go to social gatherings or places where there's a large group of people. If you follow those rules, what I'm going to tell you otherwise in an outbreak situation isn't going to be any more helpful than if you follow those basic rules. The county is so small, and I might say this because it was mentioned, no matter how much transparency I say and give, the rumor mill is what it is. And the rumor mill sometimes is more powerful than the facts that I'm putting out there. And so I'm having to not only reiterate the facts I've already stated to overcome that rumor mill, but having to answer endless phone calls and emails about this or that rumor that you heard. I don't have time for rumors. I'm a fact-based person and I'm only going to deal with them. If you want facts, listen to what I say, not what your friend's friend down at 7-Eleven who went to Dollar General on Tuesday heard from Sally's neighbor. Don't listen to that scenario. Listen to the BOCC call on Tuesdays and look for our Facebook posts that we put out press releases all the time, almost on many times a week. That information is going to be far more informative than anything your neighbor could possibly tell you.
I think I would just like to add to that. I do see some hands popping up, and we will have and that's fine, leave your hand up, because we will have a public comment session at the end of this COVID-19 session when we're done discussing. I think I see another comment that's popped up, so I'll take that in a moment. I want to say that with regard to the HIPAA thing, I'd like to offer this one context, two thoughts. One early on was an answer to the last question. Our public health nurse, Crystal Brandt, said to me at the very beginning, back in March, I think, I asked her some questions about how to proceed going forward to keep ourselves safe. And she said the same thing I've heard from you. You have to act as though in a situation like this, I mean, it's your choice, but you have to act as though to remain totally safe, as though everyone you encounter has COVID. They don't, only maybe 1 in 100, you know, or 1 in 200 or something like that, right? Whatever it is right now, 1 in 200 in the state. But you roll the dice every time you do that. And if you roll the dice often enough, if you keep assuming it's only 1 in 100, eventually you get through 100 people and that goes up. The other thing was that I experimented with that idea of trying to get minimal information about, you know, who it is that is getting sick. And I took 3 different places in the county before I was done, which were roads, just took a road that had a lot of people living along that road. And I'd plug in a gender and an age and used public information from the voter file and was able to identify the person within about a minute every time I tried to even use. And it's just because of the size of the county. And then, so when you identify a region and even a gender or an age or something like that, you very quickly can narrow it down in this county in many, many cases to one person with public data within minutes.
Yeah.
So I understand the difficulty. Mary Smith's question was a good one. Randy Balcana from the Alpine Restaurant says the Alpine Restaurant is willing to offer offer the building for testing on our Mondays and Tuesdays to help protect the community as a building that could be used for that. So it's a very nice offer. I don't know that it's necessary, but we really appreciate that. And that's in our data bank now.
We appreciate that. And I would just ask everyone this question. Ask yourself this. Would you want me to divulge your positive test to anyone else outside of the 3 nurses I work with? If the answer to that question is no, which I'm a betting man, and I bet 100 out of 100 of you would say no to that, I know if I provide you one more piece of information when in your line of questioning, that it will, in essence, divulge that person's name, or you can guess pretty much who it is. I'm the firewall between the reality on the ground and your line of questioning. And so if you want me to take down that firewall, I want to hear from 9,148 people in the county to all say yes, and then I'm happy to violate that if everyone agrees to that. And I guarantee you they don't. So I'm going to operate on the premise that I need to be that firewall, as do the nurses, and they will not provide you with your additional answer to your question as you probe them for more information, because we know that that answer to that question will, in essence, provide you with the name or enough information that you can pretty much guess who that person is. Trust us to know and be that firewall. We're doing it for you, the individual, okay? It isn't about the community needing and wanting to know who's COVID positive and who isn't. It's about protecting the community of who's COVID positive and who isn't.
Sean?
Yeah, so just give me a second. I want to push back just a little bit on that one, because I don't want to know who's the identities of these people. And I've never talked to anyone in the community who wanted to know that information. I think people want to know information that helps them better understand what's going on the ground. And an example of that would be if 7 people tested positive, 5 of them were from community spread and 2 of them got it somewhere else. I mean, that's the kind of information that I'm hearing that people want to know about, just so they can better calibrate in their own minds what's going on in our community.
Yeah, and I do that. Would you not say that I do that every Tuesday on the call when people ask where are these cases coming from? And I say the vast majority of them are coming from travel. We do have some community spread. 2 of the cases, I say that every week.
Why not say 7 came from travel and 14 came from community spread if we know that information? Because that doesn't threaten anyone's identity.
If somehow that's valuable information for people and it's going to change that fundamentally, I can do that, no problem at all. But if that's fundamentally going to change your behavior, there's a problem to begin with, because your behavior shouldn't be changed by anything I say to you as far as a number is concerned. Your behavior should be what it is, regardless of whether I say we have 1 from travel and 10 from community spread. That doesn't really, in my opinion, change it. I'm happy to do that. I'm happy to break it down but when I break it down like that, and I say, well, this one was from travel, and you know that your neighbor traveled and your neighbor is now sick, there you go. To Randy's point.
I see a couple more comments in here now. There's one comment that says, if it is a public health violation, and so this is not talking, I think, about being ill. I mean, it could be combined with that, but I'm interpreting it. This is a public health violation. If it is a public health violation, the public needs to know so they can do as much as possible to avoid that person. Do you have any comment on that?
So basically what he said is he wants to know who it is so they can avoid him.
Yeah, and they mentioned public health violation rather than positive test results. So that's
Yeah,
a little nuanced.
It's a federal violation. It's called HIPAA. It's the Health Information Protection Act. And basically it protects your health information from me divulging it to anyone else who does not have the need to know. And the general public doesn't have the need to know. The nurses have a definite need to know. And outside of that circle, no one needs to know the specific name of an individual. It's a federal violation, and I can be responsible if I continue to violate that personally. And I have zero interest to do that. Telling you that your neighbor is COVID positive and you should avoid him like the plague, you should do that anyway, as I just stated before. 1 in 200 Coloradans is currently infected. Guess what? That number is going to drop below 200. It probably already has in the last several days, and it's only going to get lower. The lower it gets, you should consider everybody around you COVID positive, statistically speaking.
Sean, I saw you unmuted a second ago. Did you have something?
I had two things. One thing I think is a little bit of the way that we talk about masks. I think some people might get the impression that it's like this shield to prevent you from getting sick. And I've heard that plenty of people have gotten sick who were wearing their masks diligently. So I just wanted to put that out there. And then the other thing regarding HIPAA, I think I have a pretty full understanding of that. I was a first responder for 22 years and I continue to be one. But one of the things that I kind of picked up maybe from that question is if there are businesses in our community who are not following the rules, who are not enforcing the masks, why are we protecting them? You know, why not add a little social pressure to them and let everybody know who are being bad actors in our community?
And to add to that, just let me say that's the interpretation I got too, which is why I was trying to ask the question. Apart from illness, if there are public health violations going on, shouldn't the community know that that's potentially an unsafe environment to be in?
Well, the last time I mentioned a single business, I was absolutely yelled at and ostracized. So I'm not interested in doing that. If you go into a business and no one's wearing a mask, let us know and we'll do what we can. But we don't really have the full backing of the legal establishment in terms of penalizing and taking these people to court to pay a fine and or go to jail. So it's the community's responsibility as well to help enforce these things. Like I said, there's 4 of us working on COVID right now in terms of the outbreak. So there's no possible way we can go to every business, and we would rely heavily on proprietors of businesses and patrons of businesses in the broader community to use your social power to go in there and do what you can to help us, because we don't have the funding. Public health is the most underfunded service in the entire country and has been for a very long time. That's why we're in the crapper that we're in right now, because public health has been so underfunded over many, many, many years that we don't have the manpower or woman power in our case to help us to address these issues. Right, we would like for it to close the bad actors, and like I said, when there's an outbreak at an establishment, meaning several of the employees become sick because they're not wearing masks and they've been infected at work, we do have the ability to close them. Prior to that, we don't.
Okay, George, I see you're unmuted. Go ahead.
Yeah, just on the topic of, whether or not we should, for example, be issuing press releases about businesses who are behaving poorly. I think that that's a little bit beyond the scope of what we're trying to accomplish. And I want to point out that, sorry for my dog, you guys. I want to point out that I think that there's a lot of ability outside of the public communication arena for this information to be spread. And to that point, I mean, I see all the time on Facebook people complaining about businesses that aren't acting well. And I think that's sufficient. So I just wanted to kind of make that statement.
I think if I could, I'd like to add something to that too, George. I thought that was a real important comment. We have had, because it's good information to have out there for the public to know, our public health department and our BOCC, our Board of Health, has, to my knowledge, to my recollection, not ordered any business to lock its door. Now, we've had public health orders that apply to everyone at large in terms of capacity and those things, but that's different than telling a business to close or ordering them closed and sending the sheriff. And so far, the way it's been handled, to my knowledge, is that our public health director and our public health director's staff have gone to those businesses to educate and communicate them and explain to them that even if that if they don't comply, ultimately they will be closed, but not necessarily because we close them, but because there'll be an outbreak that will cause either the state or some other order to come in that will actually do that and reduce the abilities of all of the businesses. And that's why it's so critical. In virtually every case where we have identified and contacted that business, almost every case, that business has been very cooperative, complied, followed the new guidelines, the ones that closed voluntarily after outbreaks. That's the way it's been handled every time. And quite honestly, when Tim made his mention on Tuesday of what he was potentially recommending for Georgetown going forward, I took it in that context, that he was going to be talking to businesses about voluntarily complying and trying to reach a level that could throw a blanket over this fire and put it out quickly within a 2-week infection incubation period, if he even did that. But I didn't hear a request for a public health order to shut the businesses down. So I can understand how some things can be said more completely sometimes, but we're on the fly a lot of times and doing the best job we can with communicating. And I can say that there's no intent on anybody's part that's on this window right now that I'm looking at to not be transparent. Sometimes we're caught not knowing what to say next because we want to make sure we don't have unintended consequences, and it can have that appearance. We try to be as transparent as we possibly can throughout all of this, and are available also to talk if anybody calls us. So anyway, I'm looking for anybody on the screen here that has that's unmuted, and I don't see that. So I'm next going to go to a couple of comments here. Haley Guy, excuse me, asks, are we allowed to trick or treat tomorrow?
Are you allowed to trick or treat, or is it a good idea to trick or treat?
The question was allowed, and you can address both of those questions, though.
Yes, you're allowed to trick or treat. Is it a good idea to go trick or treating? Absolutely not. If you'd like me to explain in further detail why I don't think it's a good idea to go trick or treating, I'm happy to do that. I know there are a number of events around the county that have been planned as alternatives to our traditional trick or treating. And I would look into those and would recommend doing those as opposed to what we know as trick or treating, door to door candy seeking. I would not encourage or do that. It's the best possible way to get the virus at this point, particularly given the transmission rate in our county and in the state. I would not recommend it. But I would recommend engaging. If you do have small children, look up those events. We have them on our website. We put them on Facebook. Some of the events that are going on around the county, and I would encourage you to engage in those with your young children. Absolutely.
Mayor Sam from Silver Plume said, is there any chance of getting your mobile testing unit to come to Silver Plume again sometime soon?
Absolutely.
Okay. I'll let you work that out offline when that's going to be and announce it. Evan Jeffries asks, as much of a comment, I think, as a question, is the health department considering the unintended consequences of lockdowns and imposed quarantines on individuals and the community, specifically from a mental health perspective?
Absolutely. We take great care in trying to understand and discern who is and who is not a close contact. If we think and we decide that the amount of time you've spent with a positive case, and the duration of that and the closeness of that, et cetera. All of this, having said that, all of this is complicated by people who are non-compliant and non-helpful. when we call them and they say, oh, I can't remember who I hung out with 2 days ago. That to us, that is not helpful. The more accurate and more forthright you are with the information helps us reduce the number of people we need to quarantine. We only quarantine people that we discern are the closest of contacts to known cases. The reason we do that is because the likelihood of you being positive yourself as a close contact is quite high. And so in order to reduce and stop the spread in the community, we need you to quarantine. Yes, we understand the impact. I've had a daughter who's been now twice quarantined. I understand very, very well the ramifications of mental health and other ways, economics. We're trying to minimize the impact. I would suggest to you, if you do not want to be quarantined and your family to be quarantined, stay away from people. Don't have 26 contacts over the last 48 hours that we could discern are close contacts because you felt it necessary to have less than 6 feet communication with someone for more than 15 minutes. We literally have someone like that. 26 contacts in 48 hours. It's mind-boggling. Is there a need for that? None, zero. So the less contact you have with people, the less likely you are to get quarantined or anyone in your family. We take it very seriously. We don't want to quarantine you any more than we have to, but it's the only tool we have to stop the spread of the virus in the community. I am very interested in keeping businesses open, and the only way to do that is to keep the community healthy. There's no other way to keep businesses open unless the community is healthy. They're one and the same.
What's the difference, Haley Guy again, what's the difference between wearing a mask and going to a store or restaurant as opposed to trick-or-treating?
Let me state some facts because there's so much misinformation and just absolute misinterpretation of reality. The 3 most effective ways to reduce the potential, not completely eliminate, but significantly reduce the potential of you transmitting or getting COVID-19. The first one is social distance, stay away from people. The second one is wear a mask. The head of the CDC, a political appointee, but nonetheless, one who said the last month or so, a face mask is the single most effective way to prevent the spread of the virus, hands down, regardless of a vaccine. Yes, some people have gotten COVID while wearing a mask. There's a lot of complicated issues with that as to why that may or may not have happened. But the reality is a face mask is the single most effective way to stop the transmission of the virus. Nobody who knows what they're talking about will dispute that. Dr. Fauci, the head of the CDC, the head of the NIH, anyone in the entire Department of Health will dispute that anywhere who knows what they're talking about. The difference between going to a restaurant and trick-or-treating is this. Trick-or-treating, you are going to, I don't know, 20, 30 houses, 40 if you're good and lucky in terms of your efficiency of trick-or-treating. You have now introduced yourself to 50, let's say 50 houses and what's going on in that house. The person who answers the door, prior to answering the door, had their finger in their mouth, picking their food, dinner out of their teeth before you rang the doorbell. And then they reached into the candy bucket for your child and picked out a piece of candy and threw it in your child's basket. You just got everything that's in that guy's mouth. And everyone who in the house, the other 50 houses, you're getting the exact same thing. Okay. I know that's a little gross analogy, but that's reality, right? So you now have exposure to 50 different people. And if you do the math, your odds are pretty good that you have now COVID literally in your child's candy bag. And then your child reaches into said bag, pulls out that piece of candy, opens it, then touches not only the wrapper, but the candy, and then inserts it in their mouth. And it's the best, most efficient way to transmit the virus from one human to another. It's the most efficient way you could possibly get the virus, is go to 50 people's home, have them give you something, and then put it in your mouth. A restaurant, on the other hand, where you walk in, you're socially distanced from people, you're there for a short duration, hopefully less than an hour, you eat and leave. You're not interacting with anybody other than who you came with and or the waiter. There are increased risks though at a restaurant, and those are tripled in a bar. So it's a gamble at that point. We have people who are saying we need the bars open. It's an economic thing. I get it. It's also the best possible way for you to get the virus in terms of your odds, because people are in there for hours. They're not wearing a mask because they're drinking, and they're probably not 6 feet apart. So minimize your time in any of those establishments if you can, and or wear a mask when you're not drinking your beer or tequila or whatever it is that you're drinking or eating at the establishment.
Okay, I think I have a question right now. I do see hands raised, but not another question and answer. So I've got my own question for you with regard to today. Are you recommending any new public health order or change today and seeking our guidance on that?
The short answer is no. I was supposed to have a call with the state, the CDPHE this morning. It was rescheduled for conflict on their end, which isn't surprising. The likelihood, given the number of cases we've experienced in the past week, the likelihood is that Clear Creek County is going from a level 1, which is what we've been at for the last many weeks, to a level 2 because of our number of cases that we've experienced over the last 7 days in particular. We had a bad week 2 weeks before that, which is what got us into this conversation with the state. It's likely they're going to be moving us next week because they give you a 2-week grace period to get back to where you were, which we haven't. We've gone in the opposite direction in terms of cases. It's my guess that the state is likely going to be moving us from level 1 to a level 2. What does that really mean? It means that the most impacted businesses are going to be restaurants and bars and gyms. For the most part, most businesses aren't going to be impacted really at all. You can look on the CDC or the CDPHE website in terms of what that means, level 1, level 2, level 3, and what it might mean for your establishment. I would encourage all the businesses to continue to be diligent in what you're doing. Social distance, wash hands. One of the most important things is if you feel any symptoms, do not be a hero. We don't need heroes. We need people to stay home. If you are symptomatic in any way, shape, or form, stay home. Do yourself, your coworkers, your community, and your family a favor and stay home. If your symptoms resolve in a day or two, it was a simple cold or simple allergies or whatever, great, go back to work. But if you're still symptomatic 2-3 days in, please come get tested. Give us a call, we're happy to test you. But we have had many instances now where individuals who've been symptomatic for a day or 2 or 3, and surprisingly, they're still going to work. We don't need you at work. We need you out of the pool and on the sidelines, getting better and not potentially infecting other people. If you can work from home, strongly encourage that. If you can't work from home, then you can't work from home. But if you can, I would highly, highly encourage it because the numbers are coming down such that the potential for someone in your workplace to have COVID is getting higher and higher and higher.
Well, it's fresh. If you could just, and George, I saw you unmuted a second ago, but just as a follow-up on what Tim just said, functionally, especially for restaurant owners and customers and everyone, what does moving from level 1 to level 2 mean? And I don't mean all the weeds and details about it, but what are the capitalized bullet points?
From a restaurant's perspective, the only change is a matter of capacity. That's it. It doesn't require the restaurant to do anything differently other than reduce the number of people who are allowed in the restaurant at any one time. That's it in a nutshell.
Okay,
if we continue, I would say though, if we continue on this trajectory, once they put us on a level 2, if we continue for the next 2-3 weeks in the same pattern, getting worse and worse and worse, they will move us to a level 3, which significantly reduces the number of patrons you can have in a restaurant. So it is urgent. If you are a business owner, tell your neighbor and your friends and every patron who comes in your business to do the right thing and share the message that I've been spouting for the last 5 months since I've been here. The message hasn't changed. What people are doing is changing, unfortunately, for the worse. So we need to go back to wearing our masks and social distance and do not have any social gatherings at all. That's my
Okay.
recommendation today.
Well, and you just, that's going to address a couple other things here. Randy Volcana says, and I'm sorry if I'm mispronouncing your name, Randy. I got the first part, that was easy. How do we stop individuals from throwing parties and spreading COVID? And the germane part of the question is, are we supposed to call law enforcement? So this is a question both for you and for Rick Albers, I think.
I wish I had the ability to stop parties. I don't. I can issue a public health order banning any social gatherings more than one household. I have zero way to enforce that. If you see a bunch of cars pulling up at your neighbor's house, sure, I would encourage you to inform the police and let them know. If people are having 10, 20 people in their home, it's not a good idea. And it threatens our entire community. It threatens your business. If you want your business to stay open, we all need to be in this together. I'm doing my part, more than my part, but I can't be everywhere all the time. Neither can my staff. So we rely on the community. You know, if your neighbors suggest to you that they're going to have a party, try to talk them out of it. Right? Tell them and have them understand the ramifications. It isn't just affect them. Here in spades, what happened in Georgetown has spread over the entire county, from the high school in the east to Georgetown in the west. There's really not any place that hasn't been impacted by what happened in Georgetown.
Hey, George, do you want to monitor the, I think we have some questions on Facebook, and I'm not on Facebook right now. I'm headed there to take a look, but would you like to pass along any of the questions from Facebook?
Yeah, I'm happy to. Dan Sternberg asked a question very similar to what was just answered. Patty Spicer asks, what's the difference between trick-or-treating just on the street and going to an organized event?
The
That
difference
was answered
is,
a little bit ago, I think, pretty well.
well, and I think and I'll real quick, the difference is when you're going to individual homes, you're facing all of what I just described to you. The more organized events have shared their plans with the Department of Health, and we've been working with them to help them make them as safe as possible and significantly minimize the potential for risk to the trick-or-treaters. From the sliding the candy down the tube, wearing gloves so that whatever the person who's putting the candy in the tube isn't given to the child from a viral perspective, and things like that, socially distancing, et cetera, et cetera.
And then John Bottomley asks if you can just delineate the list of early symptoms people should be watching for. Absolutely.
High fever. So a fever of north of 100. If you have a thermometer, use it regularly. Take your temperature. If you're feeling hot, a good time to take your temperature. A cough. Only you are going to know your baseline health condition. For instance, if you have asthma or you generally have a cough because you're a smoker, that's probably not a good idea anyway, and you should quit smoking. But only you are going to know your baseline health. So if you have a fever, if you have a cough, if you have chills or body aches, those are some of the major symptoms. We have had, and as I've said before, unfortunately, 40 to 60% of people are asymptomatic. It's a huge problem, which is why you need to wear a mask and socially distance. For those of you who are lucky enough to have a symptom, it could be as simple as the sniffles or what might seem like a cold coming on. We have had a number of individuals where it started like that, and it is now full-blown COVID. So when you are symptomatic, as I said, take any symptom serious and try to keep yourself away from others and wear your mask.
We do have a question, two questions that are on Q&A still, although I'm just going to get down to the heart of them. It was partially comment. But the main gist of it is, according to the stats, aren't we already into a phase 3 or a stay at home? Technically, shouldn't we be? So maybe you can, I guess it would be to explain just a little bit what the current protocol is with CDPHE and stats like ours.
Sure. So when CDPHE developed this, and they developed it with the input from all the county public health directors across the state, They wanted to not have it back and forth and back and forth and back and forth, because any one week you may have a huge spike of 20 cases, and then the next week you have 0. So to help provide some consistency and some not back and forth, what they did was they put us at a level that when they developed this, they put us at whatever level we were at the time. So in our case, we're at level 1. When you exceed a level 1, either incident rate and or test positivity rate, which are 2 of the primary measurements they use, they give you a 2 to 3 week window to get your act together as a county. 2 weeks ago, we had a huge spike of 10 cases in 1 week and then 4 the next week. So at 14 cases in a 2-week period, it basically triggered a call. I got a call from CDPHE saying what's going on. Explained to them where our cases were coming from and what was driving our numbers. They said, okay, you have basically 2 to 3 weeks, depending on a number of different things, to bring your numbers back down. Subsequently received a call on Monday or Tuesday of this week. I can't remember which day it is on any given day, at which point they said, we need to talk later in the week to figure out what's going on, 1, and 2, whether we need to move you to phase 2 or to level 2. So my call next week, hopefully it's on Monday with them, will likely result in them putting us officially at level 2. We will remain there until either A, things deteriorate, at which point we would be moved to level 3, and or improve. If they improve, it then requires me to write a letter to CDPHE to say, hey, CDPHE, even though you know all this, our numbers are improving and we would like you to move us to level 1, which if our numbers are such, I will be writing that letter and submitting it to CDPHE. I wouldn't pay much attention to the numbers on CDPHE's website. To say that the state is overwhelmed is an absolute understatement. The numbers on the website on any given day are probably not accurate and not a depiction of what reality is on the ground in our county. So we try to put out the numbers out that we have on a regular basis, 1 or 2 times a week. Putting them out more than that is just more work for us, and I don't think really provides the community with any sense of what they should be doing or not doing anyway. So we're putting them out as much as we can, but literally on Wednesday, my phone was ringing every other hour and a half to say we had a new case. So I can't relay that information to the public in a timely manner. I have other things to do. I'm trying to do it as much as we possibly can to keep you informed. But beyond that, I don't think it's absolutely reasonable.
Craig Abrahamson asks, can you tell us what our current incidence and positivity rates are? The dial is not updated yet.
Correct. I can't. And the reason I can't is because the numbers are changing. So I don't know how many tests we did right now. We're literally doing tests in Idaho Springs. Our nurses are testing people. So our test positivity rate, the last time I had an accurate number was roughly 4%, which is below the threshold for the state at 5%. That number is, I can't possibly have an accurate number in any given instant because of all the things I just said. Getting test results back changes that. So we sent in tests last Tuesday to the state that still haven't been logged in as being received. So once those are logged in and done, that would instantly, based on the results of that, change any number that I told you anyway. In terms of our incidence, it's still hovering above 100 per 100,000. If you recall, just 4 short weeks ago, we were at 10 per 100,000. So we're now north of 100 in the 100 to 125 range. Again, that will change based on test results. I do not have access as an individual to the state reporting database for a long list of reasons I'm not going to get into. Our nurses have access to that and are the ones who put and take numbers out of there. So I don't have access to that database.
Lynette, I see that you're unmuted.
Yeah.
Did you have a question?
Thank you, Randy. I guess, I'm extremely concerned and I'm very appreciative of all the information you've been sharing with us. How does this recent spike affect the we're hoping for an imminent opening of Loveland ski area? And is this going to, if we can't turn this around as quickly as possible, is that going to postpone their ability to open?
Great question, Lynette. The short answer is no. I have a call here in an hour with the state and Loveland Ski Resort. Loveland Ski Resort put together an operational plan with my guidance. I reviewed that operational plan. We submitted it to the state. The state had a couple minor issues with it that we're going to be discussing in an hour. And once that operational plan is approved by the state, they will return that back to me, at which point I will return it to Loveland. It's my understanding right now that the governor, who's really driving this decision, the governor is not interested in shutting down any ski resorts for a whole host of reasons, most of which are economic and political. What goes on in the county is not directly linked to Echo Mountain and or Loveland Ski Resort. And I've done the same for Echo Mountain. I'm in the process of reviewing or have finished reviewing their operational plan and awaiting it returned from them to me so I can submit it to the state in the same manner. What goes on in the county in terms of our numbers will have no impact, it's my understanding, on Loveland Ski Resort or Echo Mountain. The only caveat to that is, like any other business in the county or the state, if Loveland Ski Resort and Rob Goodell at Loveland Ski Resort, as does Fred at Echo Mountain, know this, and I've shared my thoughts with them quite clearly, that is their choke point. If they have an outbreak among their staff, it's only then that they would potentially be closed down. They know that. I've shared that with them many times, and I've told them how to avoid that. So that's really the biggest threat to them, is their employees and keeping them healthy and safe. But many of those people, as you know, live in our community. So it's in our best interest as a community to help Loveland Ski Resort and Echo Mountain do that by not having parties, not having social gatherings, not inviting those people who work there to your home. Keep them away from you so that they can stay safe and healthy, and Loveland Ski Resort and Echo Mountain can stay open. I want them to stay open all season, even though I can't ski this year, and it breaks my heart. But I want them to stay open for many, many reasons, and I'm working with them diligently to help achieve that. I also might give a plug to both of those organizations. They have both committed to our nursing staff, who in the previous week and in the coming weeks are going to be standing outside in the cold, freezing their butts off, testing and providing vaccinations in flu form and in eventually COVID form to the broader community. Echo Mountain and Loveland Ski Resort have committed to providing our nursing staff and other staff who are helping them with parkas and hats and gloves and anything else to keep them warm. We reached out to them and they more than willingly put forth those sorts of things, which we completely appreciate from the business community in working together with us and trying to keep everybody safe and, in this case, warm.
Let's see, we answered Craig's. That said, it looks like we're running out of questions here. I think we can go to, I think what I'd like to do prior to any closing up the meeting is restart a public comment period. We have 3 people with their hands raised on our attendee list. And if you could bring those over one at a time, Beth, and just let them in. And we're not really engaging and elevating a dialogue as much as you have around 3 minutes to be able to say your piece and make comment. Nancy, I see you're there.
Nancy, you're on the air. What do you have to say?
Can you hear me?
Yes.
In 4 weeks, the town of Georgetown, historic Georgetown, will have the Christmas market. We are talking about hundreds of people on 6th Street each day. Restaurants will be crowded. I have people that are objecting to it on my side and people that really want it. This will be Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, the first 2 weekends in December. Mr. Ryan, what do you think?
Nancy, I'll tell you what I think. We have been working with the folks who have been organizing that from the day one. We have worked with them on their operational plan in terms of how they can make it as safe as humanly possible. Granted, those plans were not made when we have a transmission rate like we do now. The good side of that is it takes place outside. And they have canceled all the indoor portions of that event so that all of the event will take place outside. The potential for disease transmission outside is significantly less than it is inside, many fold. We also believe that their operational plan in terms of what they're planning to do is a way to carry this out safely. This is a marriage of economics and health simultaneously. We understand the importance from an economic perspective and a mental health perspective. Who doesn't want to have a Christmas market, right?
Right,
It kicks off
exactly.
the season. It's a historical thing for Georgetown. We will work with them hand in glove to help make it as safe as humanly possible. If this were an inside event, I would have to say, I'm going to have to pull the plug because there's no way we can keep it safe inside. Given it is outside, I think there is a way that we can make it safe as humanly possible. Is it foolproof? No, nothing is. Death and taxes are the two guarantees. And so there's no way that we can make anything indoor absolutely safe and or outdoor. But what we're doing is reducing the potential risk significantly in helping to protect both the patrons, but also the shopkeepers who are going to be running the show. So we will continue to work with them. If I feel at that time like the transmission rate is so high that we can't possibly keep anybody safe, it will be then that I will reach out to those running the show and say, I don't think we can do it because the transmission rate is so high, we can't safely carry it out. Right now, I don't see that in terms of our numbers, and hopefully as a community, we can make things better in the coming weeks so that transmission rate is brought down to a level that we can have further confidence that we can keep it safe.
I think in keeping with that answer, Steve Skalski writes, because the question was about the restaurants will be jammed, I think was the comment. And Steve writes that that his establishment will continue, which is the Grinnell Pass Brewery, will continue to operate by the guidelines. They won't allow themselves to be jammed. That's their job, their responsibility. Correct. So I just wanted to think that.
That's perfect. That's what I was hoping to hear. Thank you.
Nancy.
And
Thank
I
you.
would encourage, as far as restaurants are concerned, I would encourage creativity. Find a way, any way that you can to sell products other than having people come in and sit down. Takeout and all those sorts of things that you can increase sales, but not bringing additional individuals into your restaurant. Yes, we're going to, the normal rules that are applied will be applied then. They're not going to be packed, to Steve's point.
Okay.
Thank you.
We have Gary Wilkins, I think, coming up here. Gary, you're muted if you're talking.
I have to apologize because I'm illiterate when it comes to technology, but I only wanted to mention a couple of things. You guys have been great over this whole period, and I don't envy you a bit. I just wanted to say, in the interest of transparency, Ann and I were like number 31 and 32 of the cases diagnosed earlier this year, back in early August. One thing that hasn't really been brought up, and I've been talking to people about this, is that there's a certain fear of testing out there because of their jobs, basically. And I've had people tell me that they're not going to get tested because they're afraid if they get sick, they'll be quarantined. And I can see, I don't like it, but I can see where they're coming from. And I've heard this not only locally, but in Denver as well. Well, we can't afford to have our business shut down for 10 days. I can't afford to have my job go away for 10 days. And to me, it's probably a problem if I've heard it in more than one place. Also, and I didn't think of this, and I think it was George that brought it up, but my wife has kind of already been a victim of a scarlet letter. She was not rehired this year, and she was told by a supervisor that it was because she had the virus. And somehow that doesn't sound right either. But I think it sounds more of a political or a PR type thing, getting the message out there. And for me, I want to be transparent. You know, I think we're going down a bad road, I'm afraid, and transparency is going to be a part of this, I think, getting through it. So that's all I had to say. Actually, I got a lot more, but that's all I'm going to say. So thanks, everybody.
Thanks, Gary. And then we have Kent Starrett.
Can I just respond to Gary? Gary, thank you, and I applaud your coming forward. I think it's important. I think the more people who can come forward to show, as you have, that having COVID is not a life sentence, hopefully. For unfortunate 228,000, it has been, but it isn't a life sentence, and you should certainly not have a scarlet letter on your chest. And I think the more people who speak out who have been positive, a lot of them have been your neighbors, and more, unfortunately, will be your friends and neighbors. And so the more you speak out, I think the less of that ostracizing will occur. Now, as far as testing does not cause COVID, it seems like a little bit of illogic is used there. Getting tested is actually doing your broader society a good, because knowing that you're positive slows the spread within your workplace and or the broader community. So getting tested isn't going to give you COVID. If you have COVID already and we test you and we determine you're positive, it's in your best interest, it's in your family's best interest, it's in your company's best interest, and it's in broader society's best interest if you are identified and you stay home and out of all of those places, because it's just exacerbating the problem, and the disease spread is because of that.
Okay, Kent. You're muted, Kent. You're still muted, Kent. Maybe you could bring Mayor Sam up while Kent's figuring out his microphone.
Am I on now?
Yeah, Kent, you're on. Mary, Sam, if you could just hold for a little bit and let Kent say his piece, would appreciate it.
This is going to be short. It's a dose of reality. Due to some of the other things we're involved in, we're intimately involved with what a different county is doing. And the reality here is a real compliment to Clear Creek County and the people who are involved. My comment on this is there aren't very many people watching. I can see on the list. We ought to have everybody in the county watching. There was really, really good information shared, and it ought to be shared a lot broader than it has been. So, Randy, thank you. You're doing a great job. And I appreciate the dog. Thank you for the dog, too.
Thank you, Kent.
And Kent, just so everybody knows, we are having a monthly COVID update town hall. We had one last month. We're going to have one again this month. I believe it's in 2 to 3 weeks on Thursday. It's on our website, on our Facebook page is the post. And we have an hour-long plus of information and or questions and answers. So we're trying to make as much of this information as publicly available as humanly possible. We do endless radio interviews and in the newspaper and in a variety of ways. There's only so much time to take out of our day to sit and talk to people, but we're trying to make the best of it.
And
Randy, I'd like to
go ahead.
Yeah, just a statement to the people who are listening. I see we've got 55 people on the Zoom, 55 people on Facebook. We really could use your help with communication. We make regular announcements, and they're shareable on Facebook, and this information can be shared through whichever communication styles are native to you and your neighborhood. We really could use your help to get this out. I know that our public information team works around the clock trying to keep this stuff up to date, and it's just really hard without the help of the folks who are here, who are listening and taking the time and have the time.
I think to reshare our public announcements and hit the public button, you know, not just your friends, but let it go out far and wide. Everybody who echoes us keeps growing the size of that circle. The circles overlap, but we keep gaining more people that understand and know what's going on. And that's very helpful. Amanda Cooper asks, and then I'll come back to you, Sam, as certain types of PPE become more difficult to obtain for businesses to safely operate due to virus surge, does the county have any resources businesses can pull from to stay open and ensure health and safety for staff and customers? I think the first advice I would give is, of course, start looking early and try to stockpile if you have the opportunity to get it. You can afford to do so. But Tim, do you have an answer for that, please?
We do have some resources that we are actively sharing with businesses. We're also putting together a business bucket in terms of supplies in their masks and hand gel, et cetera, and providing to businesses across the county. Is providing you, each and every business, with a stockpile of masks. I don't know that we have the resources and or the masks to do that. There's a national shortage, and there has been from day one. That problem has never been solved by anybody, state or national, and I wouldn't count on it being solved anytime soon. So we will share what we have, but it is incumbent upon you as a business to also secure the supplies that you need.
I think the advice I can give there too is it was very hard for us at the outset when there was the initial crush and shortage, and it took us really a couple of months of hard work to even find the stockpile that we have that we knew could hold us for several months to a year and a half or something like that, depending on the demand on us. And so the best advice I can get is to get ahead of the game, and because the longer you wait, the harder it gets to find them. And it takes a tremendous amount of work to find them if that's the case. So, but I think working together, I would like to suggest that working together with the county because we can, if we have the ability to put together multiple purchases where people are buying, you know, our resources are shared to the extent we can and have them. Okay. Also, we have a person that just put in chat that KYGT also has people listening today. So KGOT's getting us out there. So there's a few more. Sam.
Hi. I just got a couple comments and maybe use your meeting here to get the word out to some Silver Plume residents that haven't got our message yet. First of all, Dr. Ryan, thank you very much for all the hard work you put in, and I don't relish your job. The town of Silver Plume, we've asked all the residents in Silver Plume not to trick or treat, not to have any type of social gatherings whatsoever for Halloween. We had an event planned at the town hall that was supposed to take place Saturday evening, and we've canceled that. I believe we could have done it safely, but we don't want to take the chance. And Dr. Ryan, I sent you an email asking you about testing for Silver Plume.
Yeah, we'll get back to you, Sam.
All right, that's about it. I'm just trying to get that message out to people that we haven't been able to talk to yet. So, and thank all you from the county for everything you do too. You've been a tremendous help to all of us.
Ruth Rosenfeld asks if this video will be available on Facebook or YouTube after the fact. And the answer is yes. Normally this live stream on Facebook, you can go right to it and click on it and catch it. It stays on as a post, I understand. Isn't that correct?
Can I make one final point? I think is, and there's absolutely no offense meant to any of these occupations, but you would not ask your mechanic about your financial advice, and you would not ask your financial advisor about medical advice. So you shouldn't seek health and public health advice from people who aren't experts in public health. So go to sources that you can trust for the subject matter expert on what you're wanting to know about. Don't rely on media. Don't rely on politicians. Don't rely on your neighbor to be your subject matter expert on what it is you have questions about. Utilize the Clear Creek County Department of Health website and the CDPHE website and the CDC website. Those are your sources of fact-based information, not rumor mill and not wishful thinking and or fantasy land realities. They're based on facts. So those are the places you should be getting your information from, not any of the other ones. And I mean no harm to the financial people and to the mechanics of the world and to anyone else. Is just an analogy, just trying to provide you some
Includes
context.
carpenters, I'm sure.
Or carpenters, yes. Although potentially you could ask a carpenter about a biblical passage. We have had in history something like that.
Yeah, that's not me. Sean, I saw you unmuted.
Nope, I'm all good.
Okay.
Okay, so I want to ask, first off, I know that currently we have outbreaks all over the county, the largest outbreak being in Georgetown. As we think about potential actions, and I know you're not recommending that we take any action today, are you thinking about actions at a scale to address like what happened in Georgetown specifically, or are you thinking we need to be taking action countywide? Should we take action?
Great question, George. We should be taking action individually wide. Every single individual on this call should be asking themselves, do I need to be going there? Do I need to be doing this? Do I really need to be talking to this person 5 feet away without a mask? The answer to that last question is always no. Individuals have the ability right now in our county to impact what's going on. Not only your own individual behavior, but all those around you and helping people to make the right decisions. There's no public health order that I could pass right now to help fix what we're doing in the county right now. I'm asking each individual to take responsibility for your actions and what you're doing, because that's having single-handedly the biggest impact on what's going on. I would love to keep all the businesses open as long as we possibly can, but I can't change individual people's behavior. Only you can. So I would request that everyone in this county take personal responsibility. If you see people who aren't taking personal responsibility, call them out and ask them why they're not. Ask them if they want their businesses closed in the community, if they want to lose their job because they're not taking personal responsibility. Bring it home to them, because that's where it is right now. It's at home. And I'm doing my best. I would implore all of you in the county to do your best personally.
Okay, thank you. And then just to get a feel, because I think there's just a lot of efficacy here. So Tim, like say this message really got out and we had a lot of people really take this seriously for a period of time. How long is it will it take us to reverse this and get back to where we were just a month ago?
Literally in 2 to 3 weeks, George. If everybody does what I just suggested, in 2 to 3 weeks, we could get back to 10 per 100,000 incident rate and a test positivity below 2% or 1%. No question there. But it takes a village to do this. We can't all be working our butts off and then have a handful of people who decide they want to do things that they shouldn't be doing. It can, as we see in spades right now, it can impact the entire county.
Thanks, George. And I'd just like to say that we've done this before. I mean, the whole state did it before, but now it's more widespread throughout our population. So there are more avenues through which we can get it, but we can do this. We're a small enough community that we can take the actions. I'm positive that we can do this and turn that curve back down.
Yeah. And just for the record, I'm not saying we go on lockdown. I'm saying use your brain. You can still socialize with people. Go for a hike. It's going to be a beautiful weekend. Go outside and hang out with your friends. Socialize. Take care of your mental health. Take care of your physical health, right? I'm not saying stay in your house and don't, close the shutters and don't let anyone in. That's not what I'm saying at all. Go and do what you do, but be smart about it. Minimize the number of contacts you have in a given week, in a given day. Stay away from them 6 feet or more, and wear your mask. I really got to run. I want to get Loveland Ski Resort open. And I have to do a couple other things. I'm not going to bore you with the details before I have that meeting. So I really need to go. I thank everyone. If you do have questions, let us know how we can help you as a business and as a broader community, as a town. We're there to help you every single day. Unfortunately, every day in the weekend too. But we're there to help you in any and every way we can. We just are asking you and begging you to do your part as an individual, as a business, and as a town, and as a community. Do your part to help your own community, for crying out loud. This is your community, right? You live in it, you work in it, it's your community. Own it. Own it by your own behavior. I gotta go. Thank you everyone very much for your time.
Jim, thank you so much for the work that you're doing for us.
You're very welcome.
With that said, I'm going to have a hard stop pretty soon too. What else would we like to discuss today, Sean?
There's one thing that I thought about bringing up, and then Tim obviously had to go, but I know one of our restaurant owners sent us an email where he had put a good bit of thought into some suggestions for making his business even safer. And I applaud his efforts. And I guess I'm wondering what we can do as a county to maybe help validate that type of an approach where, I mean, there's two things, right? There is what's the letter of the law, what do the health orders dictate? And I'm drifting away from that to say, if there are best practices for bars and restaurants that will allow them to operate more safely, that the owners could voluntarily put in as business owners, I think that's a great idea. And I would love to see us as a county cooperate with that and partner with them to come up with things that are science-based that would actually make things better.
Right. And I think Tim is actually, I'm not positive, but I know, I think his approach was that he was looking at the stuff that was sent, and I'm not sure if he talked to that restaurant owner or not, but I agree that that was a great proactive way to approach it, to bring it in. And actually, as I said, I think that and he had to leave the meeting here, but as Tim had spoken before, that's generally been his modus operandi with the businesses when they have had problems in the past, in months past with this, and that is to meet with them or have a staff meet with them and work out ways that within what they suggest as well. And I think we welcome that. I think that was a really good list of ideas to have sent over and, you know, have evaluated and work out with public health. Great idea. George, anyone else before we check out of here today?
I don't think so. I mean, I came here with a list of potential actions that I would support, or at least are on the table for me. I feel like I can at least communicate what those are, so you know what I'm thinking. I think that some of the public health orders limiting personal gathering size in spite of their unenforceability is something that I'm interested in exploring. I'm also interested in exploring limiting nighttime alcohol sales. And so those are the two things that I just wanted to mention that I'm interested in exploring, and not expecting that anything would come out of this except you guys know what I'm thinking.
Yeah. Well,
And
let's
you
chat
brought
through
up something-
develop that and several things or tools on the table for future discussion. Sean?
Let's see, George brought up something interesting that Tim alluded to that I think we need to put our heads together probably at a later time. I mean, we all have our own lanes that we're operating in. There is policy and public health. There is law enforcement. There is the 5th Judicial District. And my own perspective is kind of like what I think George suggested. It's our job to set policy and to put public health orders in place, and that's it. And I don't think that we should, and I think if, you know, our public health department has the opportunity to appropriately issue summons based on violations, that's perfect. And what happens after that, honestly, isn't our responsibility. And I'll just leave it at that.
Yeah, we did have we did have some comments, I believe, from both Rick and Albers, the sheriff, and Chief of Police, Chief Malanka, that we may be looking at something where we're taking a more active role in enforcement going forward into the future. And I don't know what that looks like, and that's of course their own operation, but that we need to be, serious about this stuff. I think we still want to work proactively with people and continue to educate, but Rick's online right now.
Yeah, can you guys hear me all right? I
Yes.
think my camera's frozen, but I know Chief Malanka's online too, or he was. I don't know if he is anymore. We're gonna have a meeting hopefully next week with the DA's office, and we're gonna come out with a public statement on enforcement procedures and stuff like this. That way we can get the word out and let them know that it's my feeling and support of Dr. Ryan that we start issuing summonses to businesses that are not complying and step up the mask rule a little bit and start get maybe some summonses or something into court. That way people know we're taking this serious. We got to take it serious or we're going to be in lockdown again, and all the businesses will be shut down and we'll be back where we were 8-9 months ago. I don't want that.
Is it fair to say, another question, is it fair to say that to avoid the kind of misinterpretation or confusion that we had after Tuesday's meeting, that when we talk about enforcement, we're not talking just about businesses. We're talking about both private violations of public health order as well as business violations. Is that correct?
That's correct. We'll be looking into that. We'll get with the DA's office. And also somebody put in there earlier that how can they find out if somebody's violated the public health order? Once we're done with our investigation and the summons has been issued and or the DA fails to prosecute, that is public information. And anybody can call my office or Idaho Springs or Georgetown or Empire and get that information at a request.
And we have a comment from Skalski, Pomelo Pass Brewery, said, I applaud the sheriff's comments about enforcement inclusive of businesses, meaning, both ways.
Yep. Oh yeah. We're going to go all, if we're going to go, we're going to go all the way. And that's what I'm shooting for. I think Chief Malanka is on there, but he wants to make sure we get the word out to everybody first, make sure everybody's understands that, and the DA's office. I know the courts, I know the judge, and I'm pretty sure she's behind it too, Judge Jones. So hopefully that meeting will occur the first part of next week and we can get something out on it.
Okay, thank you. George?
Yeah, the only other thing, I'm just looking through the Facebook comments, and there's a comment here that's really insightful that I want to share. And it's about the seasonality of our business cycles and the best possible timing of something like us all choosing to be extra super careful for a period of time. This comment was saying, well, now is that time because Christmas season, we need to be in business if we're going to stay in business. And so I appreciated that comment and I wanted to share it. I think if there is a great time to buckle down and do this, that time is right now.
There's a comment on Facebook too. Does Mr. Ryan know that all public lands are closed for fire danger? And that might be with regard to ski areas opening and stuff like that. But I do know the Forest Service is allowing the ski areas to prepare for opening because they know that the fire closure has a shelf life into the not too distant future, and the stage 3 ban is likely to be lifted. It was the Forest Service, I think I got a text on Tuesday or something that said that they were going to be, and then they came out with a public announcement, I think yesterday or late the day before, that they are continuing through the weekend with the fire ban to see how this weather dries everything out and see what the long range forecast is, and also to to measure the moisture content in the forest. And they'll be reevaluating on Monday, and they may or may not continue it for a while after that, but it's got a shelf life that will soon be over as far as the stage 3 ban goes. Anything else? I don't think we are having an executive session today.
Neither do I.
It would be hard to, well, I guess not that hard to have an executive session by yourself, Bob. But.
one final piece of information just came through. Georgetown PD is on the same page with Idaho Springs and Sheriff Albers.
Good news.
I just want to add one last thing. I mean, this call has been extremely well attended, and we appreciate everyone taking the time out of the middle of a business day to join in this dialogue. And I think that some really good perspectives were shared in a really civil way. I love that. And I would say, you know, pass this on to your neighbors, because we are a small community. And I think George raised a good point he passed on from Facebook. We really do have, like Dr. Ryan said, the opportunity to get things headed in the right direction in a fairly short period of time. And we're a fairly small community, and a lot of it's in our control. So, you know, there are ways of kind of gently communicating this to your neighbors and people who have parties. And you know, there's a really good friend of mine who had a retreat planned for months, and it was supposed to be at Crooked Creek next week. And it was, I think, 20 people. And, you know, we had a good discussion about it, and they're going to do it remotely. And I would encourage you, if you have any influence in your community or whatever influence you have, make use of it. Thanks so much.
Yep. Spread it far and wide. We got to, you know, the cool kids have to know, we got to know that everybody has to understand it's the cool kids that are wearing their masks and socially distancing. It's actually the cool thing to do. With that, I think we're about to adjourn this meeting for the day. Thanks to everyone for a lot of great proactive conversation. And of course it was civil. Very happy about that.
Thank you, everybody.
We're adjourned.